Welcome to Community Conversations. My name is Sophie Kaiges, and today I'm excited to be speaking with Fiona Chandler. Fiona is a highly successful professional artist who is also passionate about finding ways to open the art world up to as many people as possible. She followed this through by co-founding the Sydney Road Art Gallery in Balgowlah, and today we are going to discuss why people do or don't go into an art gallery. We gain an insightful little dive into the connections and surprises that one might find by stepping into an art gallery. So also we do want to find out and hear about Fiona's own beautiful artwork and her up-and-coming solo exhibition. So I would like to introduce Fiona Chandler. Hi, Fiona.
Nice to meet you.
You too. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Now, it's always nice to get to know a person a little bit first. Can you just tell us where you grew up, a little bit of growing up?
Sure. Born and bred on the Northern Beaches.
Northern Beaches girl.
Yeah, so I lived most of my life in Collaroy, now live in Freshwater, school in Warriewood, married at Manly. Didn't get very far.
That's a quick background, great. So did you have fun at school?
Yeah,
Was
I loved
it a nice
school.
upbringing?
Yeah, I loved school.
Go to the beach?
A bit, yes, but my parents weren't from around here, so the beach was quite a novel thing. So a lot of working for them and making our own fun on the side. So a little bit of discovery. I've got a sister, a little bit more adventurous than I am. And yeah, we had a great childhood. And we're still friends in the area and all sorts of things. So I really like the Northern Beaches.
With your creative side, did that start when you were a child? Or
I don't know. I think all kids are creative.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I don't really have a great memory of that. Neither of my parents were drawers or anything like that. They were both more into numbers. So I think they just gave me a lot of rope. Mum didn't care too much about keeping the house neat and tidy. If I was creating something, she'd just let me do it wherever. And I think that was probably permission to play and practice, and it went from there.
Oh, great. Well, there's a lot between growing up and where you are now, but we do need to transition to...
Thank you for letting me know how much time's gone in between those two
I
things.
bet you've had 4 kids, 4 children. That's quite a lot going on. How long have you been solely a full-time professional artist?
Probably full-time since about 2013. But prior to that, I did go to university and I did art at university. So I had thought about being an artist for quite some time, but the money just wasn't there when I was starting out. I wanted to travel, I wanted to have a home and all those sorts of things. So I transitioned into design very quickly. And all of those design skills have come in handy because there's so much more to running an art career than just the paintings themselves. So there's a lot of marketing and photography and images and discussions and briefs and all those sorts of things. So I think it's been a real asset to have both.
Yes, what a great background for you. I've talked to a few people, which has surprised me that people may feel uncomfortable to go into a gallery, which I didn't know. That really surprised me. So can we start with what do you think an art gallery is?
I can start with what an art gallery is, and first off, it's not a shop.
All right.
An art gallery, for the most part, is the only way that an artist can speak to an audience, whether it's an existing audience or one they're discovering. And so an art gallery can be an amazing place that people can happen upon and enter. And if it's a welcoming place, then you get a whole spectrum of people, which is what you want. That is the best feedback for the artists. It's the best feedback for the people who work in the gallery. It makes them feel validated about what they're doing. And also the people that happen upon the art gallery that may not have been in before or associate art galleries with something they do when they're on holidays overseas, when they go to the Prado or something like that. It's just such a start of a conversation. It's a really calming place to be. You can discover something. You don't have to know anything about art. You could just have a look, you could ask a question. The people in the art galleries know everything there is to know about each of the artists. So you can always ask, and there's no silly questions. And once you feel comfortable in a place, whether it's an art gallery or anywhere else, you're more likely to keep visiting and expand that knowledge. But you don't have to have a degree in art to love art.
Yeah. Do you think it's a place where a community connects and people connect to...
Absolutely. And I think with consistent visiting becomes a confidence as well. We've got clients that just come at the beginning of a show to sit and have a coffee. They're there for the whole entire time. They just sit in the middle of the gallery. They enjoy the show.
Yeah.
We've got other people who bring their dogs or their kids to see a show. We've got people who pull over on the side of the road because something's grabbed their eye in the window. We've had cyclists race in, sweat covered because something stopped them in the window. That happens. So,
okay.
yeah, the whole demographic from the very young to the very old, to people who have seen art before to people who haven't.
Why do you think people actually don't go in? Because that really surprised me that people went, I don't actually feel comfortable. I don't often go into an art gallery.
Well, I know why I don't go into some.
Right.
Yeah, so that sounds silly, doesn't it? So sometimes I'm desperate to go see a show, but the gallery, for whatever reason, now it could be the layout of the gallery, it could be the busyness of the gallery, you walk in and you almost feel like you're putting them out by being there.
Right.
Or you might be a bit scruffy that day, happens a lot, and you feel like you're not dressed for it, or you might not know enough about it. I kind of think that isn't the viewer's issue, it's the gallery's issue. You're welcome wherever. Every gallery wants people to go in and out. It adds life. But I can understand it completely.
Yeah.
Because you imagine when you go in the gallery, someone's going to ask you, I don't know, some sort of highbrow distancing question, which they're not. Most of the people who work in galleries are people with an arts background or an interest in art. They're dying to tell you something. They love it. So to ask questions is really validating what they do. But I can understand if you walk into a big white box and everyone's nicely dressed and you've, I don't know, just come in from your run or whatever, I can understand why sometimes it won't be welcoming. But if you push past that barrier and you keep going.
Well, it's true. Actually, I was having a conversation with the person in one gallery and she was saying, no, I don't feel comfortable. And we said goodbye. And then I cycled up the road and I thought, actually, I will go into this gallery. And, I went to the door and I actually thought to myself, do I look a bit scruffy, like you said? And then I went, I'm doing it as well. So
it doesn't
really
matter.
Bizarre. And people think they need to know about a painting. But going into an art gallery makes you feel joyful or happy, there's memories, connections, all sorts of things. And people kind of miss out on that sometimes if they feel a bit shy.
Absolutely, and they might see something that sparks off something else. So it's not even only the effect the art has about the artist, but if you're having a brilliant day, all of a sudden you overlay that story onto that painting. And so you might see that colour or that artist in the future, or something might remind you of that day, and all of a sudden it amplifies something wonderful.
Yes.
That's not a bad thing.
You're talking about paintings. Have you got a way that you think a painting draws a viewer in?
I can speak on behalf of my paintings. Right. I hope that my paintings give back over their lifetime, so that if you live with one of my paintings, you discover something new, whether it's on your way to the toilet every morning. You see the same thing over and over again, and all of a sudden you notice something extra. I put a lot of detail into my paintings, and for that reason, and a lot of light. And I do hope that there is a sense of discovery, but I think once someone takes a painting home or experiences it in a gallery, they start adding their own story to that as well. So their experiences go over the top of that, which is quite joyous. And sometimes I'm lucky enough to have collectors who come back show after show and they'll tell me which paintings they have and why they have them, or we will deliver them to their homes and then we hear a little bit more about them. There's nothing more exciting than seeing where your painting lives.
Fascinating, where a painting lives. Would you agree with the curator of the New South Wales Art Gallery, who also said that the average, when people go in to look at art, they might stand in front of one for only about 30 seconds and they move on. And then they might miss, you're saying your paintings are detailed. I wonder if people might miss a lot of the detail and a lot of the thoughts around a painting if they just stay there for 30 seconds.
Absolutely, but there's so many paintings in the world. How could you give them all the time?
Yeah.
So there's people at the Met who go to visit one painting, people who live in New York, and they just visit the same painting weekly. They're not looking at all the other ones. They connect with a painting and they love it. And that's a really common phenomenon in New York. They feel a sense of completion around that painting. So when lockdown came, they were truly sad not to have access to the painting. It's not, they feel like it's their painting, but it's hung somewhere else, so they don't have access all the time. I don't think there's a right or wrong time to spend time with a painting, but I think if you really dislike something, spend a bit more time and see
Right.
whether you can change your own mind.
I went into the gallery in New South Wales the other day, and I sort of walked past a big painting, and I went, oh yeah, whatever, you know. And then I thought, oh no, Fiona previously had told me that you need to stand in front of a painting for as long as to peel an orange. So I actually walked back, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, making out peeling an orange in the art gallery. Oh my Lord, I learnt so much more about the painting.
That's exactly right. But imagine if you went to see a show and you did that for every single one. Your brain would explode, right? You just couldn't do it. So you just,
choose.
And if you are blah about something and it's hanging somewhere that you've gone to, try and spend a little bit more time and see what that curator would have seen.
Right, right. So now going to your gallery, which is the Sydney Road Gallery at Balgowlah, tell me a bit more about that. How many artists were a part of that when it started?
When it started, there were 12 or 13. It was quite an interesting start. I had been an artist for a while and I was wanting to ask lots of different artists lots of different questions. And I realised everyone was having a very similar difficulty, which was that their painting wasn't taking up all of their time. It was marketing, hanging, making opportunities, all those sorts of things. So I thought if we were all having the same thing and we're all afraid of selling our own artwork and conversing with people and, you know, you put all those things. And the framers that I was dealing with at the time had said, you're mad, why do you keep sending all your artwork to other galleries? And I said, well, I have thought about running my own. And before I knew it, I was signed a 3-month lease. And it was just going to be a pop-up. And I rang artists that I really wanted to exhibit with. So people like Amanda Ty and Jessica Watts and, oh gosh, Debbie and Fiona and, you know, the whole crew. And just got them together and asked whether they'd like to do this thing for 3 months. And that was 5 years ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was fantastic.
Right.
So we all learnt a lot. And some of the artists are still actually with Sydney Road. And some of the artists have gone on to open their own studios and galleries, art experiences, tours, and they're part of the Sydney Road experience as well. So we still have access to all of those fantastic artists, and we've expanded it and we have new artists as well.
So you built that up and you opened that up for all these artists to...
Yeah, it's fantastic. But they made it happen too. They brought skills that I didn't have.
Yeah, right. Isn't that great? I asked you previously in another conversation, do you curate? And you said that you don't curate because it's another...
It's a completely different skill and I'm rubbish at it. Absolutely rubbish.
How could you be rubbish at it?
Because curating is telling a story visually in a whole completely different way. It's not like balancing a page or a shoot or a styling set or anything like that. It's a completely different experience. And so we have Sarah Montgomery, who's a master printmaker from Tasmania and now owns ArtSmart as well. She's an incredible curator. She can bring a whole load of disparate items together and make it such an experience that you draws the viewer in and you want to wander around.
Because I think that's what the average person might miss, going in and thinking, oh, how are all these paintings put together? And the room looks great, but you don't think about that. You just go from painting to painting, not realising that a curator has spent a lot of time.
A huge amount of time.
Yeah.
And a huge amount of thought as well, giving each of the paintings the room that they need or putting them in a grouping so they make sense. There's so much to it. I go to the hangs purely for the muscle, and so I hold things up, but I just don't have that eye.
I would have thought an artist would. So when it comes
Some
to
probably do, I just don't. No.
So when it comes to your exhibitions, do you have a say in where you put your own paintings?
So that's a really interesting question. Depends where they're hanging. If they're hanging at our gallery, I do have a say, but I still get overridden by Sarah as the curator. She's always 100% right. I recently had a solo show in Melbourne. I shipped all the paintings down there and they hung them. So I had no say over that. They did a great job. They knew their market and they knew the viewers.
Have you ever walked in and gone, oh, I wouldn't have put my own painting there?
Oh, of course. But yeah.
Yeah?
Of course I have. but not and changed it because I can't tell somebody else what their job is. But yeah.
And I'm curious, do you watch people's reactions to your paintings and go and talk to them?
Not if I can avoid it.
Oh.
Yeah, one of the things I find that really hard to do. And I know as a art buyer and a visitor of the arts, I love speaking to other artists. I'm not judging them. I'm not doing anything. I'm learning, and I'm joyful about that. But when the shoe's on the other foot, I find it really tricky. But I do have quite a good network around me that make me do things that I'm not comfortable with quite often, and that's part of it. So I do meet people who collect. I'm much better on the telephone, and I'd rather be on the telephone and chat to collectors that way. But it does happen that sometimes I'm in the gallery, and also sometimes I'm in the gallery and people don't know I'm me.
Right.
And so that can be a really, that's kind of a bit weird, because you'll be legging it in there, you know, you're covered in paint and all that kind of stuff. And someone will go, oh, I really like this one. And you'll go, oh. And you realise they're talking to you because the gallerist is probably out the back or something. And then you start talking about the painting. And at some point, a question comes up, and it's kind of gone too far to say, well, actually, it's mine, thanks.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of a bit weird. But I don't think it's weird for the person who's in the gallery, just for me, just being a bit silly, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, you were telling me another time about a person that came in and didn't like a painting but walked out with it.
Yeah,
Tell us
absolutely.
about that.
Yeah, I still remember that fellow. So he came in and he was actually looking at a print, and it was the most incredible print. I really love printmakers and what they do. Printmaking is very different from pressing print on your computer. It's a whole process, and it's fascinating. So it's almost like chemistry and art mixed together. So there's a lot to it. And in this case, this fellow had come in accompanied with his wife, and she had wanted to come and see something, and I happened to be standing there, and he's like, oh, see, I don't get this. Look at that. I don't like that at all.
Oh, no.
And so I smiled and I said, you really don't like it? And he said, no, I don't like it. Don't see why it's art, and, you know, the usual. And I said, would you want to chat about it? Because it could go either way, you know. And I started to tell him about the process of it.
It wasn't yours.
It wasn't mine, and how it was made and how it was framed and what had gone into it, and asked him what he could see. I in no way was trying to sell this artwork to this gentleman. And then when I spoke about the artist, who it was, and gave a bit of background on that, he connected with the artist's surname because he had bought a bull that day with the same name. Oh. And then all of a sudden we started talking about farming and what his life was like and all. It probably took an hour, but no one was more surprised than me when he left with that painting.
Oh, my God.
And his wife got one too.
Oh,
so
wow.
it worked out quite well.
Yeah, right.
But I think that discussion went home with that gentleman and that painting, and that was part of the experience for him.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's a part of an experience, isn't it? That's why people connect to art.
Absolutely.
Way. And do you find it interesting, the topics or the subject matter that different painters choose to paint?
Oh, constantly.
Yeah. What people grapple with, how they feel, what subject
what their
matter.
composition is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and also they might think that they've very clearly painted a particular thing, but the viewer will see something completely different.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting as well. So sometimes a title will give you a way into a painting or an artwork, and sometimes it's equally elusive.
I think a title often helps.
Yeah, it does.
Especially if you go to the MCA, Museum Contemporary Art, you need a bit of help. Let's get on to your solo exhibition coming up. That's very exciting. So is that daunting, having your own solo exhibition?
Yeah, it is, but it's a privilege as well. So you're not thinking about anything else other than what your narrative is or what you're saying or why you're making it. You've allocated a particular amount of time in the studio to do that. It is daunting so far as you don't know how it's going to be received. For me, I don't want to do a show like one before. It'd be very easy to continue a previous show because it's already been received well. I try to explore something new every time. So it is daunting, but it's exciting.
What sort of themes do you do? What are the different things that you...
I'm usually responding to landscape in some form. Years ago, I did a lot of florals and things like that, and I don't know quite when all that changed. I do go back to that every now and then, but at the moment it's mainly responding to experiences. So we had lockdown for 2 years, so you only had your environment. And where we live is beautiful. And I think... Freshy, but anywhere on the beaches, whether you're loving the suburbia and the day-to-day or whether you're in the bush or near the ocean, people love their environments, and I do too. So I find I observe a lot from where I am, and I base it on those sorts of things.
You're doing a lot of rocks, is
Yes.
that right? And are they around freshwater or where you've been? Do you work on plein air or by photos, or how do you work?
I don't really work on photos. I take a lot of photos and they sit on my phone, but I don't work from photos. I do a little bit of sketching. Sometimes it's from memory. Sometimes it's a happening while I'm out. I don't know what it is that grab you, but you know when it happens, it's going to turn over into a painting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I wander around a little bit going, I don't know what I'm going to do with this show. How's it going to look? And it's almost like 99% thought, and then the action is really freeing. So you're working out and you're breaking down, and will this work and won't this work, and what am I saying and why am I doing it, and all that kind of stuff, which matters to no one except me.
It sounds like quite a process.
It is. It's a roller coaster.
And it's your own unique way of looking at something. So that's why people have unique themes or landscapes, or, you know. So because yours, I was told that you have 10 layers of gesso. Is that right? You're a watercolour artist?
I am a watercolour artist.
And is that right, that you put a lot of layers down before you start painting?
Put a lot of layers of gesso and a lot of other things, purely because although I adore paper, to frame paper you have to put it behind glass, perspex, whatever.
I wondered.
And then there's a distance between the material and the viewer. And for me, I like to build up the layers and build it up and almost watch people who have to put their hands behind their back because they're desperate to touch it.
Yeah.
And I know that's what I want.
It's so smooth, your layers. So we should tell the audience what gesso is.
Well, gesso is just like a base.
Primer, base.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about board, though?
I do paint on board sometimes.
You do? Yeah.
But the weight...
That's quite smooth, isn't it?
It is really smooth. The sizes I work to can buckle.
All right. What sizes do you work to?
Oh, sometimes they're 2 metres. So quite big, and quite bulky to get around.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's working all of that out. And the current show is called A Great Balancing Act, not purely because of, definitely not because of the subject matter, because how to produce a show with sizable pieces in a very small space, along with the rest of your life. Sometimes I'm kind of reaching from the ceiling or hanging off something or straddled over something else. So it's actually the physicality of the show and the problem solving that goes with that. And whether it's on canvas or board, that is something you've really got to consider.
So is that why it's called a balancing act? I thought it might have been balancing 4 children, actually.
No.
And trying to paint at the same time. So when you paint, is it up on the wall or on the ground?
No, it has to be flat because it's watercolour and it's got so much water. It's really, really water heavy. So yeah, they always have to be flat. And so I'm constantly negotiating with gradients, and there's a brush jammed under here and tape jammed under there and moving things around.
So you don't want the drips then?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Not a dripper.
No. But there's so much water that if it was upright, the painting wouldn't be there in half an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned to me once upon a time that you're very messy.
Really messy.
How big is your studio, and are you
Tiny.
in puddles of water, or what do you mean by messy?
Yeah, I am in puddles of water and buckets everywhere because the studio is very much a working space. So I do paint myself into a corner, and to operate all those different layers, sometimes they're dripping off a certain section, and then of course I'm quite clumsy, so I'll knock something over, and there's cords and there's lights. And I think when people come, they expect a white New York loft. And people do come to the studio sometimes. I think they're sorely disappointed by how it looks, except if there are other creatives. So photographers sometimes come and they love to fossick around. And people like to look in the drawers and see the sketches and stuff, but it is very messy.
So going back to your paintings, the rocks that you're doing at the moment, there's always these tiny little circles in there, and a little spy I had, which just happened to be your son, who was in the gallery at the time, told me how you paint these little circles with a .0000005 brush.
It's madness,
And they can take a seriously long time. And
they do.
Is that the texture, or what are the little circles?
Well, so back in the day when I was at uni, I did plant and wildlife illustration. So that was looking through a microscope and I don't know, every hair on a cockroach's leg sort of
Right.
thing. So when I'm observing something, I'm looking at its colours, what it's made up of. So the tiny little circles that I do are usually the granulation in the rock. And when you get really, really close to the rock, you can see a bit of purple, a bit of green, a bit of yellow, all those colours that you didn't think were there.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to pull out. So that's why I do that. I send myself bonkers sometimes, and it's not in every single painting, but it is a reminder of those rocks. The rocks are quite disparate, and there's kind of weird ones in, and I try and show.
But I love that. It's like the more you look, the more you see.
Absolutely.
So, you know, like, do you explain that so people know why you've got these gorgeous, intricate little patterns in one rock in your painting?
Only if they ask.
Right.
Because sometimes they're coming with an idea of what it is, and they're really glad to have that idea. They don't need me to discuss it with them.
Yeah.
That's always nice too.
Yeah, right.
But sometimes people come with a huge amount of research, so they might have visited several shows before, so they've followed my work. Artists are great collectors of other artists' work as well, so they're often interested in how you do it, why you do it, and they, you know, talk about their practice as well. So there's no one way in.
Yeah. Cool. Did you want to say anything more about your art?
Not really.
Yeah. Okay. But what about your exhibition, though? That's coming up very soon.
Yeah, 8th of September to the 22nd of September.
8th of September, okay. And that's at the Sydney Road Gallery?
Yes, it is.
Do you do exhibitions with other people, or, you know, you're doing a solo, but then do you have exhibitions with 4 other people, or the 13 at the same time?
Oh, I exhibit there 48 weeks a year.
Yeah, do the others?
Yep.
Yeah.
If they want to. They don't have to. It's
right.
not like they have to, but yes, I'm exhibiting there all the time. So we have group shows, or we'll have a subject show. We do have other artists that we invite to join us. We might have a birthday show. We've got a still life show coming up. All sorts.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah. Okay, Sydney Road Balgowlah. All right, well, we can finish up in a moment, but what's next for Fiona? I often think, well, you've got a solo exhibition, that's probably it. Are you going to have a nice little break?
I always say I'm going to have a nice little break, but I've got another show coming up at AK Bellinger in January.
Where's that, AK Bellinger?
She's up at, the gallery's up at Inverell, up near Armidale.
Right.
So I'm really excited about
Wow.
that. The show will be very different to this one. I'll have to
What's
start
the
thinking
subject
about it.
matter?
Oh, who knows?
Oh,
who
really?
knows? Who knows? I'll get there. I'll get there. So I'm excited about that one too. Yeah, and a holiday in between would be a very nice thing, but I don't know.
And just other solo exhibitions, you said you had one in Melbourne. Have you had quite a number?
No, that was my first one in Melbourne.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very good.
Yeah.
Okay. How many is that then?
Well, the one coming up, that'll be my 5th.
Okay.
And then, of course, I've got 3 planned for next year. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be busy.
Yes, very busy.
Yeah.
I did talk to you the other day and you went, you're working 24/7 just to get to this.
Because of the
finish.
drying time.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So you can't just keep painting, because otherwise it'd just be water. So it's the drying time. It's been raining a huge amount.
Okay.
And that's slowing everything down.
Oh, yeah. Your paintings are fascinating. They're beautiful. They're
Thank
really
you.
delicate and beautiful. And Fiona, where do we find you? When you're art?
Well, if I'm not in Sydney Road Gallery, I'm online at fionakate.com.au and on Instagram, Fiona Kate, Simple Gorgeous.
Oh, right. Simple Gorgeous. That's a great name.
Thank you. It's got a long story. It doesn't make business sense because, yes, anyway.
Well, we'll have a look. Thank you for coming in and talking with us. It's nice to leave our audience with one last little piece of inspiration. Have you got an inspirational thought or quote or anything like that?
Gosh, the only thing we have in our family is proceed until apprehended. Give it a go.
Proceed until apprehended. Yeah. I like that. That's great. Well, let's hope we've actually enticed some more people into art galleries to have a look and maybe stay in front of a painting for longer than 30 seconds and peel an orange.
That's right. We might have to start handing out oranges at the door.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be something different.
It would be.
Thanks, Fiona, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.